Hello everyone, this is Harminder Suri from Toronto Drivers, and if you are looking at getting the most productivity from your driving lessons, then you must watch this video all the way through the end, because in this video I'm going to tell you what you should tell your instructor to teach you. You know, a lot of people, when they start learning how to drive, they have never sat behind the wheel. That's why they do not know what to expect. So they let the instructor lead them. And because of this, sometimes some instructors, I'm not saying all of them, but some instructors take advantage and end up teaching 25 to 30 lessons to that student. So if you watch this video and if you tell your instructor to teach you these things, then you will get the most productivity, and probably in less than 15 lessons, you will become a very good driver and be able to take your road test. So the number one thing that I want to start with is knowing the car components. You know, I can't emphasize enough on how much it is important to know the car components. You know, I've had students fail because of not knowing the components. You know, I said that in one of the videos where, you know, it was a rainy day and the car AC wasn't working, or probably the student didn't know how to turn on the AC, and it became very foggy inside the car, and that person did not know how to remove the fog from the rear window. Now, that was my student. Yes, I usually tell my students to do that, but that student had just borrowed my car for the road test, and I thought they would know everything about it. So it was a last minute call, but since that person did not know how to use the car components, they failed their test. So you don't want that to happen. So tell your instructor to teach you what all car components there are in the car. At least know the basic things that you may need to use on the test, like, you know, where the wiper is, how to remove fog from the rear window, how to turn on the lights, and all those things. Hey, I made a video on car components, so do watch that video to get some idea about it. Now, the next thing that you want to know is, this is very important, right? Now, I did this with all my students. Knowing or learning how to turn is the most important thing in driving. You know, turning is, like, I would say, if you learn how to turn, that's 60% of driving, right? The remaining is just parking and, getting used to the traffic. So what I used to do as a driving instructor, I used to, on the very first lesson, you know, I would take my students to a block, right? So it was a square, and I would put them there and say, you know what, do left turns. Okay, so I started with left turns because left turns are easier than right turns. You know, I wanted to help them build the confidence. You know, once they had, once you build your confidence, it becomes easier for you to do the harder ones, right? So right turns are a little difficult because you have to drive closer to the curb. Left turns are wider. So I always got them started with left turns. I would let them practice left turns for the first half an hour, and they'd be surprised to see how they're able to drive and make turns. And, you know, after they had, build the confidence to do left turns, I would then switch them over to right turns. Now, right turns were a little tricky. They took them, learning how to make right turns did not take them half an hour, sometimes took them an hour or hour and a half. But by the end of the second lesson, they were good with turns, right? You know, most students got to learn how to turn in the first 2 to 3 hours, but sometimes some people took like 5-6 hours, right? Everyone has their own learning curve. But yes, you want to get started with turns. You don't want to learn how to drive straight, right? So there are driving instructors who will just take you to a street and let you drive straight. Hey, you don't want to learn how to drive straight. Yes, driving straight is a concern for most people, but that's not the most important thing. So if you learn how to turn, you will also learn how to drive straight. So get on to the turns first. So the next thing that I want to tell you is that, you know, a lot of instructors instructors get nervous sitting with new drivers on the side, right? What I used to do was like, I used to take my students to the highway. Right now, keep in mind, right? These guys didn't have to go on the highway, didn't have to take a highway test, but I took them on the highway just to help them build confidence. I wanted to give them the taste of the highway. Hey, you know what? When you go on the highway, you get that adrenaline rush. You're very nervous. So that's really helped them build confidence. I would take them on the highway. They would and I would give them a last minute surprise. Hey, you know what? We're going on the highway. And they would say, what? We're going on the highway? Oh my God, I'm so nervous. And, I would let them get nervous, right? That's a strategy that's helped me, right? Helped build confidence in my students, right? And then, I would go on the highway, and these students, and when we got off the highway, they would say, Harminder, oh my God, that was crazy, right? I was so nervous. I said, how do you feel now? I said, I feel much better now, right? Now I've driven with, cars that are driving really fast. I've gone on the highway. I can't believe, my parents will be so happy to know that I went on the highway. The happiness that I saw on the faces of those students made me really happy, and that's the job of a driving instructor, to help boost confidence of students, right? And it could be they can use various strategies, right? So one of my strategies was taking my students on the highway, right? So tell your instructor, if you're on the 7th or the 8th lesson, and if you haven't gone on the highway, tell them to take you on the highway. Okay. And another thing that's related to this is taking students to drive-throughs, right? Drive-throughs, I did that on purpose, right? I would tell my students to go on drive-throughs that had tricky maneuvers, right? That were really complicated, not the straight ones, right? So, and driving through the drive-through is also a little tricky, right? Because of the very narrow space they have, and so you learn a lot of things when you go to the drive-through. So tell your instructor to take you to the drive-through also, right? So ask them, if you want to take a coffee break, I would like to go through the drive-through so that I get some practice. Now, the next thing is, you need to have a lesson plan. So most students, they book a 10-hour course with their driving instructor, and so the way I would divide this is, first few lessons, 2 to 3 lessons, depending on how quickly they learn. I would teach them first I would teach them how to make turns, and then after they had learned how to turn, I would take them on side streets or main road, and I would let them get used to the traffic. And by the 5th or the 6th lesson, I would teach them how to do parking, right? So parking actually doesn't take long, right? So it's just, a few quick maneuvers, and, some strategy, in parallel parking. These are the reference points. So I would tell them the reference points, and I would let them practice for the rest of the time. And by the 6th or the 7th lesson, they would be ready with parking also, right? So we've done all the maneuvers, 3-point turn, parallel parking, reverse parking, forward parking, all those things. And then I would do a test with them, right? So actually, I'll come to that, right? So the thing is, right, so you must be done with parking maneuvers, or everything that you would that you could possibly get on the test. You should be done with it by the 6th or the 7th lesson, right? Now comes the next part, which is very important. The thing is, you should tell your instructor to take your mock test. These are really important. Hey, before you get to take your final test, you want to get used to, you want to get the taste of the test. And you want to know what to expect, where exactly you're making mistakes, right? So I would do a mock test with my student on the 7th lesson. In the 7th lesson, and then I would tell them that, you know, these are the things that you need to work on, and then my students would go home and practice. If they had a car, they would go home and practice, or they would watch videos on YouTube and you know, practice those maneuvers mentally or physically, right? And that really helped, right? So I would take one mock test in the 7th lesson, and then in the 8th or the 9th, or if they're okay, I would continue doing a mock test from there on, right? Every lesson I would do a mock test, and the more mock tests you do, the better it is for you, right? So you would know what exactly your weaknesses are. Right? So make sure you do some mock tests before the actual test so that you get used to it. And another point I want to mention here is that ask your instructor to be a mean examiner in 1 or 2 of the mock tests, right? Because, hey, you'd be sitting with a person that you do not know, right? And they could be very mean. I've heard from people that, you know, they got a mean examiner. So ask your instructor to act like a mean examiner so that, you know, that helps you build confidence, right? So that when you go for an actual test, you're not that nervous. The next point that I want to make is you want to know your weaknesses in and out. Hey, listen to me. Your instructor is the one who started teaching you, and they know what your weakness is. Your parents may not be able to tell you, your friends may not be able to tell you as accurately as your instructor will be able to tell you. So ask your instructor what your weaknesses are so that you can improve on them, right? Take feedback very constructively. You know, I've seen students who would get upset when I would tell them, hey, you know what, these are the things that you need to work on. Listen to me, right? If you do not come to take driving lessons with an open mind, you're not going to be able to learn. And these are the students who end up taking 25 to 30 to 35 lessons, you know. And I'll be very honest, sometimes I've given up on these students because I did not feel like, you know, I was justifying my job. I didn't feel like taking money from them, right? They were spending a lot of money, and I felt guilty that, you know what, I'm not able to teach them. Maybe they'll learn better from another instructor, you know, if they're not comfortable with me, right? So I've had to let go of students like that, right? So go to driving lessons with an open mind and know from your instructor what your weaknesses are, and go back and work on them, and you know, watch videos or practice at home if you have a car. And yeah, so that's going to help you get better tremendously. So these are the things that you should know when you go for driving lessons. You know, if you follow these things, if you tell your instructor to teach you these things, hey, trust you me, you are going to pass the test in the very first attempt. And this is what my effort is, right? Through these videos, I want you to pass the road test with flying colors in the first attempt, and also become a very good driver. Actually, making you a good driver is my first priority, and helping you pass the road test is the second priority. So if you think this video was helpful, do leave me a like down below, and leave me a comment below saying how my videos are helping you. And I'll see you again with another video. Till then, take care and drive safe.